Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin sayyidina wa habibina wa syafi'ina wa nuri qulubina wa qurrati a'yunina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa sallim. Nawana ta'alluma wa ta'alim wa tadhakkura wa tazkir wa naf'a wal intifa' wal ifada wal istifada wal hatha ala tamassuki بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى مع لطف وعافية. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدني ومشرب الصافي الهني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدني ومشرب الصافي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدني ومشرب الصافي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. Amin. Okay, Alhamdulillah. Right, we have reached on the fifth of the obligations of the prayer. Furudu salat salatata ashara. Right, the obligations of the prayer are 13, and it's mentioned different books might put different numbers because of basically either they count all the tumatninas as one tumatnina, as one rukun, or they count separate tumatninas as separate rukuns. Right, depending on what on how the writer of the book counts the tumatnina. So they might have different number of arkan or wajibat or furud of the prayer. And some books they will count in khushu and hudur in the prayer as well. Right, so mashallah. So we're on the fifth one. Is al-khamis ar-ruku'. وأقله أن ينحني حتى تنال راحتاه ركبتيه. Tamam. So the fifth one is bowing, and the minimum is to bend until both palms of the hands can reach both knees. And the key word here is can. It can reach. It is sunnah for them to touch the knees. It is sunnah to open the hands up and grasp the knees. Right? It's sunnah to grasp the knees and open the hands up when you do your ruku'. But it is not wajib. It's not part of the conditions of ruku'. Right? That the hands must be on the knees. It is a sunnah. Right? So to perform the sunnahs. So if someone does ruku' and bends enough that if they were to reach out, they will be able to reach their knees, then their ruku' is valid. Right? Their ruku' is valid even if they don't reach out and reach their knees. Like for example, someone who is carrying a child. Right? So you're carrying your child and you're doing ruku'. Right? If you don't, if your hands are not touching your knees, then that does not nullify your ruku'. Your ruku' is valid. Right? Or also the example of if someone is has no hands, right, so they can't touch their knees, right, or whatever that might be, that they are unable to extend their hands to their knees, for as long as if they were to extend their hands to their knees, then their ruku' is valid. I'm not sure if last week I mentioned I went through ruku' or not, but I'm just going to go through, right, what is haram ruku' and what is makruh ruku'. Right, so the correct ruku' is the one that I'm drawing in the center, whereby correct ruku' is whereby knees straight, right, and you bend 90 degrees. Okay, the head is here. Okay, and then the hands, right, so this is the knees of the person, right, and then the hands will be on the knees. This is correct ruku'. Okay, so to bend such that your hands are able to reach your knees. Where do you look? You look down. Okay, you look straight down. And in fact, the place we are looking at is your sujood place. Because technically, if you go into sujood, your head should be somewhere around here. Right? That is what is correct ruku'. Okay, wrong ruku'. Okay, haram. I'm going to put haram ruku' first. Haram ruku' is to do this. It is to have the head up, right, vision forward, right, and then chest sticking out like that. Okay, this is haram ruku'. Right? So in doing this, right, okay, so to have the chest, so even if the hands can reach the knees, to have the chest up and facing forward is haram, and the ruku' is not valid. They have to do it this way lah. Right? Makruh ruku', let me do a makruh one. Makruh I use what color? Brown. Okay, for makruh ruku', it is to bend the body all the way like that, right? So the head is tucked in, right? And then there is a that you can touch your ankles also, right? So basically it is a makruh ruku', to bend like a curve, in that way. Makruh to do it that way. Okay, right? Wajib for the knees to be straight, right? So if the knees are bent like that, right, that is not ruku'. Right? The knees are bent, it's not ruku'. Okay, that are the conditions of ruku'. Right, so what are the conditions of ruku'? The conditions of ruku' is that when you bend from standing, you bend into ruku', you need to intend the ruku'. Right, so you don't have to be a formal, verbal intention in your heart, right? But as long as you know that you're bending only to ruku', so you're not bending for any other reason, right? So if someone is standing in prayer, then like for example, they are hiding from somebody else, Allahu Alam, right? And then someone goes past, and so they bend, right? They bend to avoid being seen, or like something is flying towards you, like a cockroach flying towards you, bend to avoid being hit by the cockroach in your head, right? So you bend, right? And then since you have bent, say to yourself, well, since I'm in this position, might as well ruku', right? No, cannot. Your ruku' tak sah. Your ruku' is not valid. You must stand back up, and then you must only bend for the sake of doing ruku'. Your only reason why you're bending is because you are doing ruku'. Right? So if this was any other reason why you were bending, right? For example, if someone dropped something, or the child pulled him down, or any other reason why you actually bent, right? If it was not for ruku', you have to actually stand back up and then ruku' again, right? For the intention of ruku'. And there's no like formal niyat about, oh, I am doing ruku' for the sake of Allah. No, there is no formal niyat. It's just that your intention in doing it. What was your intention? And was it for prayer or was it for something else? Tamam? Okay, it is required to have one momentary pause at which the whole body is not moving, and not to intend to be doing other things while bowing. As you're not trying to do something else, right, while bowing, and you're just doing ruku'. So you see in this book, they actually combine the tumatnina within the rukun. They don't count tumatnina as a separate rukun, but they count tumatnina as a condition of the rukun. And so the condition of ruku' is that there has to be tumatnina. ويشترط أن يطمئن بحيث تستقر أعضاؤه وألا يقصد به غيره فلو هوى لتلاوة فجعله ركوعا لم يكفه. نعم. Right, so he cannot have any other intention in doing his ruku'. So I hope you all write down the conditions of ruku'. So the conditions of ruku' is going backwards a bit. Right, the first condition you find it here. Let's put it back up. I'll put it here. Okay. The first condition of ruku', right, you find that minimum is to bend, right, until both palms of the hands can reach both knees. Number 2, it is to have tumatnina in your ruku'. Number 3, and what is tumatnina? Tumatnina is that the whole body is not moving, right? So that means you hold the position. So even if you move a little bit, as long as you hold the position, is counted, and not to intend as number 3, right? Not to intend to be doing other things while bowing. So if someone is about to go down with the intention to perform prostration of recitation, so you intended to perform prostration of recitation, then halfway through he thinks to himself, I don't want to do sujud tilawah, I want to just do my ruku'. So halfway down, he actually goes into ruku', right? It does not suffice. He has to go back up and then redo his ruku', because him moving in the first place was niyat sujud. Him moving in the way where he was intending to sujud. But halfway through, he said to himself, I'm just going to ruku' now. Right? So he actually has to get back up and then intend to ruku' at that point. Okay? Tamam. We're going to continue. Right. Any questions, just ask on the chat. This, right? So number 6, الاعتدال وهو أن يعود إلى ما كان عليه قبله وشرط الطمأنينة. Right. So the first condition of اعتدال is tumatnina. So what is اعتدال? So again, definition. What is اعتدال? It is to go back to standing position before prostrating. That is a definition of اعتدال. Just now ruku', definition of ruku' is bending, right? Basically ينحني and ينحني, right, to bend بحيث وصل أو وصل راحاته ركبتيه, right? It is to bend such that your hands can reach your knees, So when I say define for me ruku'. I define for me ruku'. What will you say in the exam? It is to bend such that the palm of the hands are able to reach the knees. That is the definition of ruku'. If I say define for me i'tidal, you will say i'tidal, it is to go back into a standing position that one was on before movement. Alright, so before before they had moved into ruku', before positing or before movement. Alright, so ya'udu makana alayhi qabluhu. Alright, so qabluhu doesn't mean specifically before prostrating, but basically going back to standing lah. That's called i'tidal, going back to standing. So the condition of i'tidal first and foremost is a momentary pause. Right, to have tumanina is a condition of i'tidal. وَلَا يَقْصِدَ بِهِ غَيْرَهُ فَلَوْ رَفَعَ رَأْسَهُ فَزَعًا مِنْ شَيْءٍ لَمْ يَكْفِي. And his second condition is that he cannot intend anything except for i'tidal. Every part of the prayer, you cannot intend any other thing except for it being a movement in prayer. Right, so if a person were to be in ruku', right, and then they see, they see like an insect crawling in front of them when they are in ruku', so they stood up, right? They stood up straight away, out of fear, right, for the insect. So when they stood up, right, then they thinking to themselves, okay, I might as well intend i'tidal. So they intend i'tidal, not counted. The moment they want to move, they need to intend i'tidal. Alright, for example, now it's a more possible example, that you are in ruku' and then your hijab begins to slide down your back, right? Or the wind, the fan is blowing your hijab, right? So you are afraid that it flips forward, right? Because you're in prayer, you don't want you don't want your aura to be exposed, right? So you are in ruku' or in sujud, and you feel your hijab is sliding right down your back, or it's being flipped. It's flying, and the back is flying because of the fan, right? So you get up, right, to stop the hijab from flipping over. Right, so you get up. You're getting up is for i'tidal or for the hijab, right? So then there's the difference there. Same thing with sujud. Once you're in sujud, and then you feel the hijab sliding down your back towards your neck, right? So you quickly get up, right? Are you trying to stop the hijab from sliding, or are you trying to sit down after sujud? What are you trying to do? Okay, so understand that, mashallah. This is not recording, is it? It's recording. Okay, tamam. Alright, so right, so if you were to lift your head for any other reason, it will not suffice, right? So for i'tidal, it's very simple. As long as the back is, so basically for i'tidal, for healthy people, your back should be straight. So your backbone should be aligned again. That is when i'tidal is counted. Your backbone is aligned again, right? But if, let's say, someone who is already bent, naturally bent, an older person naturally bent, then as far as they can push their back, as far as they can go, right? So if they can't make their back straight, then as far as they can go. Okay. Okay, then going to the next one, number 7, as-sabi' as-sujud. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad. Okay, of the conditions of every part of the prayer, right? Of the conditions of every part of the prayer is that what came before it needs to be needs to be valid, right? So for every part of the prayer, whether it's ruku' or whether it's i'tidal, I add in this additional conditions, because for just now I was numbering the conditions. Point is additional conditions for all of them, right? That what came. Why is my pen not working properly? Type it out lah. Okay, additional conditions for all movements in the prayer. Or positions lah. Okay, so the first one is that what came before it was valid. Okay, right? So if what came before it was not valid, then the next movement will not be valid because of the condition of tartib. And there has to be an order. So if my ruku' was not valid, my i'tidal cannot be valid. Right, so if I ruku, so I go Allahu Akbar, I ruku. I hardly held it, and I said Allahu liman hamidah. Right, so there was no tuma'nina in my ruku. For ruku, I Allahu Akbar. I hardly bent anything. It's so my hands could not have possibly reached, been able to reach my knees. So I bent a little bit. Allahu Akbar, Sami Allahu liman hamidah. Right. So even if I held it in position, I say Allah, but I held it in position, right? It's not possible for me to have reached my knees in this position, right? And then so my ruku' is not valid. My ruku' is not valid. If my ruku' is not valid, all that comes after my ruku' not valid. I must go back to my ruku' and redo my ruku' for everything thereafter to be valid. Right. So what came before it must be valid. Now. Okay, there is an additional rukun for, basically there's the only one lah. There's additional for all of the actions or positions in the prayer. Okay, for ruku', right, for ruku' specifically, as I mentioned just now, that it must, or the chest must not face the qiblat. You cannot make your chest forward towards the qiblat or your face forward towards the qiblat, but rather it has to be towards the ground. Your in ruku', like for ruku'. Okay, all right. So now going on, so we've done i'tidal. So same thing, right? So same thing with the conditions previously, right? With that you do not intend. And for i'tidal, that there has to be tumanina in your i'tidal, and then you do not intend anything except what is, except i'tidal, and then that the what came before it must be valid. What came before it must be valid. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. And then there's this one more condition. Okay, tumanina is a condition, and to have tumanina with certainty is also a condition. To have tumanina with certainty is a condition. So for all of them, for ruku', for sujud, for i'tidal, there is these two extra conditions that is not mentioned in the book. I'm putting it down. Like that, what came before must be valid. Tumanina is a condition. To have tumanina with yaqeen is a separate condition. So tumanina is a condition, and to have yaqeen, you have tumanina. So you cannot be like, did I have tumanina? Not so sure. You have shak. You doubt your tumanina. Then you have to go back and have tumanina with yaqeen. So but of course, do not open the door to waswasa, to whisperings from shaitan. Okay, so now going into sujud. So sujud, a sujud maratain. What is sujud? Sujud, it is al-khudu' wa tazallul. Al-khudu' wa tazallul, it means to lower yourself and to tazallul, yani to humble yourself. To humble yourself. So what is sujud? Sujud is to humble one's self. This is the definition of sujud. Where's my pen? Okay. Definition of sujud is to humble oneself. Al-khudu' wa tazallul. To humble. Why my pen is not working properly today? Okay, to humble oneself. Marratain. So here you see in this book, same thing. The sujud, they counted it as one. They didn't count any of the tumakninas. They place all the tumakninas as a condition for all of the actions. Which is why they have only 13 arkan of the prayer. Whereas if you learn other books, they will say 17 arkan of the prayer, because they count all the tumakninas as a rukun, and they count the two sujuds as separate things. But here the sujud all is one thing. Tumanina is within the rukun, inshallah. Maratain wa aqalluhu an yada'a ba'da basharati jabhatihi ala musallahu. So the minimum of it is to place part of the skin, not the brow, but the forehead. Okay, change the word brow to forehead. Okay, the forehead, the jabha. Where's your jabha? Your jabha is here, your forehead. So brow might mean here, You're not putting your brow on the ground. You're putting your forehead on the ground. So the skin, this is the only part of your body that needs to touch the ground by skin. That's the only part of your body. The nose, it is sunnah for the nose to touch the ground by skin, but it is not wajib. The palms of the hands, sunnah as well. Sunnah for your palms to touch the ground, not wajib. The palms, the skin of the palms is wajib to place it on the ground, yes. Right? But if let's say it's covered with cloth, no problem. It does not nullify your wudu. So if your sleeves are covering over, or your telekong whatsoever is covering over at your palms and your sujud on it, it does not nullify your sujud, right? But to expose the palms like that and to sujud on the palms, sunnah. Sunnah. For men, for their feet not to be covered is a sunnah. For men, their feet not to be covered. Of course, for women, we wear socks, we wear telekong whatsoever. Our feet tend to be covered, and it must be covered because our right, right? But of course, if you stand on the ground, with your feet on the ground, and your telekong is around your feet, right? Then that one is for women, there's no sunnah to expose the feet. Right? For men, yes, sunnah to expose the feet. Of course, the knees, there's no exposure lah for the knees, right? Because the knees is supposed to be covered for your aurat, mashallah. Okay. Now, so if let's say a person were to wear their the telekong and they pull it down until here like that, right? It's all the way down here. Okay, where are they gonna sujud? This part is a depression. You can't possibly sujud here because it actually bends in. Correct. Right, so if someone wears telekong all the way down until here, right, their sujud, high chances their sujud is not valid, right? High chances, right? So as long as it's a small part. So like for example, if someone's wearing the niqab, I know there's kind of niqabs whereby the head, the eyes can be seen. Okay, you're wearing a niqab, the kind of niqab, and you want to pray, you need to either remove the niqab or you need to flip the top cloth down to half the face. Right? If you don't want to expose your face, you need to flip the top part half of it down to half your face, because your jabaha, your forehead must be exposed in sujud. Or alternatively, if you want, you can shift the eye gap up to your forehead, because what is wajib is that the forehead touches the ground. So even if you're gonna pray, you can see what's in front of you. That's makruh, but does not nullify your prayer. Right, so if you push your niqab up, if you cover your eyes, but then your forehead is exposed, right, your salat sah, your prayer is valid, right? Okay. So it's unfortunate that when you go to Mecca, you see people praying. They're praying at Masjid al-Haram, at the Kaaba, and they're wearing niqab. And so when they sujood, they're doing sujood right on the cloth. Right? They've not studied fiqh. There's not studied fiqh. You must sujood on the skin. You must sujood on the skin. Right? So even if, let's say for example, those kind of like burqa whereby the cloth goes in front of the entire face. I've seen my teacher do this before. The burqa is on top of her face, and that it's just a big cloth in front. They wear in tarim. And so when they sujood, they push the cloth in front of them. They push the cloth, and so they sujood right on the ground. But the cloth is all around them, but their forehead is on the ground. Sah. No problem in doing that. Okay. Okay. So any questions asked? Okay, tamam. So the conditions of prostration, right? The condition of prostration, first and foremost, again, right? What came before must be valid. There must be tumatnina. Tumatnina. So this is number 1, right? Number 2, tumatnina. Tumatnina with sedentary, number 3. Okay, with sedentary, number 3, and then part of the forehead on the ground, number 4. Okay, placing part of both knees, part of inner palms, and part of toes on assertive on the ground. So you can put this all as one condition if you would like, or as separate conditions, right? So basically, part of it meaning even a tiny part, it can be covered. Right? Part meaning can be covered. Right? Can be covered. Allah, I don't know why my pen today macam tak connected. Okay, can be covered. Right? So part of the inner palms and part of the toes on the underside of the feet. Why do they say part? Right? Part. Right? Because okay, your inner palms is basically this part. Okay, so if you place your hands together, right, what touches each other, that's called the palm. Right? In Arabic, it's called batnul yad. Right? Batnul yad, right? Basically, the light area. This whole part, your finger all the way up. We went through this when we spoke about wudu. Right? Because this is the entire area. If it touches your private parts, right, it nullifies your wudu up to the bottom of the hand. Okay, so you place your hands together. What touches each other, that's called the bottom of your hand. Okay, in sujood, any part of this, as even if it's one finger on the ground, even if it's one finger on the ground, even if it's the bottom part of your hand on the ground, don't have to put the entire thing. The entire thing is sunnah. To put it on the ground is sunnah. Right? But as long as any part of the hand is on the ground, the inner hand, okay, so not the back of the hand, and it's called zahrul yad. هذا بطن اليد. نعم ظهر اليد وبطن اليد. Right, the back of the hand and the stomach. It's got the stomach of the hand, right, the front of the hand. Okay, any part on the ground. This is important, right? Because I've seen people when they pray and they're holding a mushaf, right? So they're holding a mushaf with their hand. So when they sujood on their wrist. Right? I have seen them, they sujood, and then they put this part of the hand on the ground to hold the mushaf up. Sujud tak sah. Your sujud is not valid. You're trying to hold a mushaf, and then which is in its first place is not necessary for you to do. Then in doing that, they sujud on the back of their hand. Tak sah. You need to sujud on the front of your hand. Okay, so what can they do? What can they do? They can hold the mushaf. If you really want to hold the mushaf, because better they can actually put a table next to them, put a mushaf on the table, or they can somehow other tuck the mushaf, on their bodies, right? And then they can somehow other they can tuck it under your, tuck it with your hands, right? And then you can sujood on the ground with your hands on the ground, or you can tuck it on your lap if you want to. But I don't think it's a good idea with the mushaf to do that. What else can you do with the mushaf? Right? But if let's say you have to hold it, if you have to hold the mushaf, right? You can sujood in a way whereby you're holding the mushaf and one finger is on the ground. The bottom of the finger is on the ground. One finger is on the ground. Sah. Sah. Your sujood is valid. Okay? Alright, so just be very careful if you're doing that. If let's say for myself personally, if you really want to follow the Imam in their recitation in Ramadan, for example, Ramadan Tarawih, they're doing Quran, kan? And you want to follow the Imam's recitation, it's easier to use a phone. Right, so all you do is that open up a mushaf on the phone, right? Off your Wi-Fi so you don't get distracted. Right? Off the Wi-Fi, off the 3G, so no messages come in. The mushaf is open on your phone. Look at the phone, right? In following the Imam. Then once you blank out the screen, the phone is not a mushaf. If the screen is blanked out, the phone is not a mushaf. You can put it on the floor. It's not a mushaf. You can put the phone on the floor. Right, and then we pick it up, pick it back up, and pick it back up. Then you pick it up again, right? And you're on the screen, and the mushaf appears. Now it's a mushaf again. Right, and when you off the screen, you blank out the screen. It's not a mushaf anymore. Right, it's easier than to carry a mushaf. Because stress, carrying a mushaf, put the mushaf where, and then you're gonna sujud mushaf compromise and everything. Wala hawla wala quwwata illa billah. Tamam. So just be very careful about that. Allah. Okay, so tumakna with certainty, and then to place part of both knees, right? So basically, it's not possible to avoid the knees lah. How are you gonna sit without your knees on the floor, right? You can't lift your knees. Anyway, I had a question before. One of my students, she had hurt her knees terribly. So there is like terrible bandage or huge bandage on the knee. So she asked when she sujood, she lifts her knee. So that means she's on one knee, the other knee is not touching the ground. Okay, when you're doing that, right? So your hands on the ground, your hips on the ground, your feet are on the ground. One knee is on the ground, the other knee is lifted. So the other knee is not actually on the ground. Right? So say to her, the knee, even with the bandage, all that, then that it needs to rest on the ground, but you don't have to put your weight on it. But just have it kiss the ground. Just touch the ground lightly. The only place where you must have your weight on it is the forehead. Right? There has to be some weight on the forehead. Right? The forehead can't kiss the ground. Okay? But the knees, if you're gonna just like kiss the ground, like touch a little bit, to fulfill the conditions that both knees must be on the ground. Right? So just to touch it a little bit, sah, valid, can pass. Okay, the toes, right? So the underside of both feet. So again, botnul rijlain, right? So the bottom part of both feet, like that. So if you sujud with your feet backwards, of course that's salah, right? Your and some people they sujud on the tips of their feet, the tips of their toes. No, your toes are bent, right? They're bent and they're facing the qibla. Okay, and so bend your toes on the other side of the feet. So even if it's one toe, that is that is bent and facing forward, sah, your sujud is sah, it is valid. Okay, even if it's one tiny toe, it can valid. Right, so if someone has like an injury in their toes, and I also got this question before. People get injury in their big toe. So they say, how am I going to sujud now? So use your baby toe lah, your baby toe, like use your small toe, your little toe. I use the small one, right? And so you can sujud in a way whereby your big toe is not on the ground, but you tilt your feet in a way that the pinky toe is on the ground. Okay, can be done. Okay, inshallah. Okay, alhamdulillah. Naam. Right, so that is for the sujud. So a part of all of these things are on the ground without the condition of the skin being on the ground. The only skin that has to be on the ground is your forehead. Naam. نعم وجب عودة إلى الاعتدال. Right, so okay, so and then, so you have to sujud, right? You have to sujud intending sujud. Tamam. Right, so here let me just go down, so that where we're at condition number 4, 5. Okay, so now 6. So 6 is there has to be some pressure on the head. So some of your weight must be on your head. Right, so you need to your forehead cannot kiss the ground. The forehead cannot kiss the ground. The forehead must be resting on the ground. Right, so like a few weeks ago I had terrible flu. So when you have terrible flu, all of the mucus is in your forehead. You all know, right? And when you sujood, it's so painful. It's so because all the mucus is all gathered at the front of your face. And your face sembab, your face it will become swollen, right? So your mucus is all there. So you're sneezing all the mucus out because it's all gathered in the front of your face. When you sujood, it's so painful because the whole pressure is on your head. But just be very careful when you sujood. You need to go enough to get the weight of your of part of your body on the forehead. Then you get up. Okay, even if you're not going to hold it for a long time, hold it for subhanallah, and then you get up, sah, it is valid. But don't like because of the pin in the forehead, you hardly graze the ground, right? The point hardly graze the ground and you got up already, and tak sah, right? That is not valid, right? So that was number 5 just now. Number 6 now is that there has to be pressure, right? Pressure on the head, slight pressure. It means there has to be some weight on your head. Right, and then and going down is only for prostration. That means you have no other intention as to why you went down. Right, so if you went into sujud for any other reason, you need to go back to i'tidal and redo your sujud, or go back to the previous position and redo your sujud. Okay, so if one falls on his face as the position of performing prostration, then it's obligatory for him to go back to it. So like for example, for some reason he fell. Right, so however he fell right, so he fell on the ground. So he's like, okay, might as well since I'm here, might as well sujud lah. No, he has to go back up to i'tidal, intend to sujud, and come into sujud. Right, so again, as you mentioned, that if someone were to duck, to avoid something flying in their way, right, or they want to hide from somebody, whatever lah, they're trying to do, like whatever reason they could have to go down to their face, right. So if they do that without intention of sujud, they have to redo their entire sujud. Okay, then there has to be a lifting of the back or the buttocks. Right, so irtifa'i asafili meaning basically the buttocks, right, a higher level than the face or the head. It is not allowed to prostrate on what moves together with your actions. So from number 7 here, right, number 8, right, not to do something how am I numbering this? Okay, now fine. I'm numbering the English, not the Arabic. Okay, so number 6, number 7 is here. right? Number 8 is here, right? There has to be an incline. So when someone is doing sujood, right, there has to be an incline like this. Okay, right, toes to forward like that. Okay, and then now forehead on the ground. Okay, and then part of the hands on the ground. Okay, there has to be an incline going on. All right. So if someone were to sujood on a hill, sah or not sah. If you were to be praying on a hill, right, and then you go into sujood, how in the world is doing sujood? Basically, I don't know how it's gonna happen, right? But you're not on your buttock is not inclined to your head, right? It's on a straight line, or it might even be above, So like for example, someone were to sujood, okay, more cannot pray on stairs, right? Why? Right, because you pray on stairs, right? You're gonna sujood. Where's your head gonna be? So if you're gonna sujood here, right, high chances, Allahu A'lam how it's gonna happen, right? But you cannot pray in that way, okay? You cannot pray in that way. Another thing also is that if someone were to sujood and they were to sujood in this way, whereby they fold, like this, see that kind of sujood, so they're crouching like a turtle, like on the ground, tak sah in the Shafi'i mazhab. If you see people doing this, you check first, are they wearing socks? If you're not wearing socks, you're Hanafi, this is the way women sujood. Because Hanafi mazhab, women sujood like that, right? They bring the whole body to the floor, like a turtle lah, all to the floor. So if you see someone in the mosque doing that, look at how they're dressed. High chances they're Hanafi. Okay. But if you see your own family who's Shafi'i, for Shafi'i, and they sujood all down to the ground, tak sah. For Shafi'i, the elbow must be lifted. Elbow must be lifted. So for women, it's pressed to your body, lifted. The elbows are lifted. For men, it's opened up. And the armpits are opened up. Tamam? Okay. You're not allowed to prostrate on what moves with your movement, right? Except if it moves with your hand. So basically, your telekung, you can't you can't spread your telekung in front of you and sit on your own telekung. No, because your telekung moves with your movement, right? But of course, your sejadah can because sejadah technically, even though it moves your movement, it's not connected to you. Right, so sejadah is okay. Somebody else's telekung in front of you, someone's telekung so long up to your area, and you sit on their telekung, no problem, because it moves, yes, but not with your movement. It moves with that person's movement. Okay, all right. So continuing, okay. If one clear all drawings, if one whole forehead is bandaged, it means bandaged all the way up to the eyes because of injury, and he can't remove the bandage, then he puts it on the bandage and does not have to qada the prayers. Tamam? No qada of the prayers. Okay, alhamdulillah. Going on to the number 8, let me answer the question here. It's a question here. Is there a need to put pressure on the forehead? The having a prayer mark on the forehead, kan? Right, that you must put the pressure on the forehead. You must. Now is wajib. Just went through, wajib to actually, but don't press your head on the ground. Right, pressure just means that the weight of your head is on the ground. See, so like for example, if you are praying on a soft carpet, there should be an indentation in the carpet because of your sujood. There should be. So what is the opposite of placing weight on your head? It is your hands are carrying your weight, and then your head is just kissing the ground. It's not rested on the ground. So we're not saying press your head, no. We're saying rest your head. Okay? Rest your head on the ground. You're not pressing your head on the ground. Okay? You're resting your head on the ground. Okay? So you're not holding your weight with your hands, and then your head is like hardly touching the ground. It's like kissing the ground. And tak sah. The one is not valid. Right? So your head has to be rested on the ground. Okay? Now, to make a sujud mark, if someone sengaja, if someone on purpose rubs their head on the ground or presses their head on the ground just to get a sujud mark on their head, then wallahu alam, why are they doing that? And it could be showing off if they're doing it to get the mark on their head. Right? But if it's really because they do a lot of sujud, and they hold the position for long periods of time, to the point that this mark forms without them doing it on purpose, then that is up to them. Then that is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is, and I mean, Allahu alam, it's just something that happens to people. Right? Some people get it, people don't get it. Right? Naam. So you don't have to have like a mark. Don't make a mark. Right? Don't try and make a mark on your head. Now, okay. So number 8, sitting between the two prostrations. The requirement is to have a momentary pause. Right? Sitting, the only subhanallah, for when it comes to sitting between the two prostrations, the shurud is so simple. Right? It's just that you have tumanina, yakin in tumanina, and your sujud before that was sah. Dah. For sitting between the two prostrations, you can sit however you want to sit. You can sit cross-legged. You can sit if your legs stretched out. You can sit however you want to sit. Of course, the sunnah is to do iftirash. Right? Iftirash is sunnah. Right? So basically, when it comes to the sitting position, which is why if you have a sprained ankle, you can technically still pray, right? Because you're sitting, just stick out your leg lah. You don't have to sit on your leg. No one says you must sit on your leg. Right? You can stick out your leg if you want to, or cross your legs if you want to. Right? But if you have a sprained ankle, high chances you can do the entire prayer. I've done it before with a sprained ankle. You can actually do the entire prayer. Right? You can stand, you can ruku'. Enough lah. Don't have to ruku' so low, because otherwise it's a pressure on your ankle. You can sujood, no problem. Sitting down, just stick your leg out. But wear proper attire lah, so your aurat will not be exposed. Yeah, you can perform the entire prayer with a sprained ankle. I've done so. Right, so so for the sitting between the prostrations, the requirement is to have a momentary pause, tumanina, right, with yaqeen. Right, that's number 2. Okay, and then cannot lengthen. I cannot lengthen the sitting as with the i'tidal, because they are short rukuns. If you lengthen more than what is sunnah for you to recite, then that could render your prayer to be invalid. So you cannot lengthen short rukuns. So for the sitting down between the two sujuds, you recite what is sunnah to recite, and then sujud. Okay, same thing with i'tidal. I'tidal, you recite what is to recite, that is sunnah, and then go and sujud. Right? Kunut is counted as what is to be recited. So if you're doing a long kunut, sah, the whole thing sah. The whole thing is valid. Okay. So again, the intention is to sit down. Okay, that is number 3. This is number 4. Right? Conditions. Memorize all the conditions there, all will be tested. Right? The conditions of every part of the prayer. This is what is deeper in Muqaddimah. It is not covered in Safina, right? Safina is went through the part of the prayer without going through in detail the conditions. Muqaddimah goes detailed into the conditions of every part of the prayer. Okay, so if you lift your head from sujood because of some other reason, does not suffice. So for example, you're in sujood, right, and then you feel something crawling near your eye. And then it's in the dark, it's like dark room, you can't even see what it is. Right? So you got up, right? What was crawling around your eye? You see cockroach in front of you. Right? So if you get up, right, and then, so you got up because of why? Because you were in shock of what was crawling in your face. Right? You got up. You had not intended to sit between the two sujoods. Tak sah, you have to go back down and redo, right, the sitting, and avoid the cockroach lah. You're praying. Okay. Again, as I mentioned just now, if your tudung was sliding down your back and you got up to stop it from sliding, so you didn't get up to intend to sit down, but you got up to stop the tudung from sliding down to your neck. Right, so again, okay, so that's not suffice. Alhamdulillah. So you can sit how you want to sit. What is sunnah is iftirash. Let me just do iftirash for you. So iftirash is basically, it's called iftirash, right? Why? Because for farasha means to spread out. So your foot beneath your buttocks. Right, that is iftirash. Left foot, you're sitting on your left foot. Your right foot is propped up like this. The toes facing the qiblat. Okay. Okay, that's how you're gonna sit iftirash. Allahu alam. Okay. right? So your foot is spread out beneath you're sitting on your foot, right? And your right foot is propped up, right, with your toes towards the qiblat. Tamam. Tawarru' later on, this foot will extend beneath under your right foot, your buttocks on the floor. So tawarru' is like this. The buttocks on the floor, right? The right foot is still propped up. The left foot is underneath. Nam. Okay, your left foot is here. Okay, that is tawarru'. And this is your knees. Okay, tamam. Okay, inshallah, I'll continue number 9 next week. Let's see if there is another question here. Number 9. Okay, tamam. Okay, so inshallah, we'll stop there. So, wassallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Al-Fatiha li Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wa amal qasim musta'im dalal huda wa yusuri bi qabl Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa ila arwahi mu'allimina wa shaykhina والزوي الحق علينا وإذا حاضر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. الفاتحة. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Waalaikumsalam.